At the end of this life that I've been given, after the prayers and the bells are rung, I ain't afraid of where I'm going and what'll become of the songs I've sung. What'll become of the songs I've sung.
All right, welcome everybody. Welcome everybody back to the Corpus Christi Songwriter Podcast. We're here.
No. Get it right.
Get it right. Okay.
Songwriters. Come on now.
All right.
Branding.
Okay. All right, welcome everybody to the Corpus Christi Songwriters Podcast. I'm Jules.
I'm Jimmy.
I'm Shayna.
And we three here are podcasting. Good night. Shayna is hanging out with us for a little bit. We just actually got done interviewing her, and you'll be able to hear that here in a little while. But we love Shayna so much that we were just like, yo, maybe you just stick around for the intro. So say hi to everybody, Shayna.
Hi. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Derrick.
He's going to love that when he finally actually listens to the podcast. So we had two like illuminating, amazing conversations tonight. You never know what to expect when you sit down and start talking. And I really enjoyed both of these.
Yeah, first conversation was with Ty Dietz. You know, Ty is like, I always feel like I've caught him like right at the tail end of like a hard shift. Like it's like, okay, Ty's trying to go home and get some eat and then pass out, or because he's probably got a fishing trip tomorrow or something like that, you know. So it was good to like hang out with him for a good amount of time and just talk to him for a bit. Jimmy, what'd you like most about that conversation?
Oh man, put me on the spot. Test anxiety. I honestly, the journey of talking to him about his past, his lack of process, and how similar him and I are as songwriters. I really connected with that because everything that he said, I'm like, yep. That's exactly what I do. And while our styles might not be similar, we approach things in a very similar way. He's just one of my favorite people. So to be able to sit down and have a long form conversation with him, it was just fantastic.
Oh, yeah. He's one of my favorite people, and he's just so real. And I think we appreciate each other in that way, I guess. I could always call him throughout the years. I'll talk to him maybe even once a year sometimes, just once every other year even. But if I call him up, it'll just be like this really candid, hilarious conversation where we just make each other laugh.
Yeah. And when we wrapped up with him with his conversation, that's when you jumped in and you were so excited to see him.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, it's going to be with both of us. We're going to get to laugh.
Yeah, and then he left you, and you've been sad ever since. And then we had this open, enlightening conversation about music and in general, everything that you spoke about, Shayna, in our conversation. I don't know. It's left me in a good place to head into work tonight. Just want to say that.
Thanks.
And I really hope I
really shared every damn detail of my it's like, and then on June 24th, I went into Terra Blues Club. Like, I feel like I gave you a play-by-play.
No, that's it's great. You can tell when some guests come on and they're very guarded, so they just give you the things that they normally say in a conversation or in interviews and things like that. Sorry, Harper is destroying my couch right now. And then
Scrappy's dog is named Harpo.
Harpo, nice. And then you come on, and I just enjoyed how, like I said, open you were to really expressing yourself with us this evening. It meant a lot.
Thanks.
And then we'll also talk about your Kickstarter campaign when we get there. So, Jules, you want to send it off to our first guest, Mr. Dietz?
Yeah, yes. With all of that, with our friend Shayna here and compatriots, we shall head into the next phase of this podcast.
10 years ago when I was in my prime, somebody told me don't you waste your time. I finally figured out just what they mean. I got holes in my pockets and holes in my dreams. Hold up, I ain't done, just a little washed up from too much fun. But I I think I'm gonna stick to my guns and make $100, have a little fun. Make $50 and have a little fun.
Ty Dietz is one of the few local songwriters that tell it how it is. No fluff about him. Dietz is a straight shooter all his own in a modern local music scene that is ripe with originality. This is Ty Dietz. Just want a full transparency. I normally read like a review from like an album release for our guests or some sort of something, and I couldn't find one for you. So I found the interview I did with you for our Corpus Christi Songwriters website and the Bin magazine. So I actually wrote that. But it's a good quote for you. I think it's very much true, very much legit. So we've been wanting to get you on the podcast for a while. So thanks for coming on, Ty. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. It's hanging in there, staying busy.
Yep. That's all you can do.
Yeah, staying busy with fishing starting to pick up, and then, gigs are staying steady.
Where are you playing most these days?
I play Port A lot, well, Shorty's is, I have a residency there on Sundays from 8 to 11, 9 to 12, whatever happens. And that's a great gig. I love that gig. And then I try not to play too much in one area, but I have some one-offs at like Reds, Texas Reds, Riviera. They're in Port A and Bronze here and there. I think I did a Memorial Day show at that new Sip Yard, which is a cool place. I like a more enclosed, intimate dive bar setting than a big venue. It's hard to transfer your energy when it kind of disperses or doesn't transfer as well in a big venue like it does in a small dive bar when the people are right there and you can pick out individuals and make eye contact or even make fun of them. That's what I like to do. I mean, all in good fun. Just make and then the stage banner goes a long way when it's in an intimate setting than when it just kind of gets lost in the ether between you and the audience when it's a long ways away and there's a lot of other stuff going on.
Definitely. I want to know, you put out an album. When did you put that out? Like 2011, 2012 or
2011? Yeah.
2011. When are you going to put a new record out?
I don't know, man. I was thinking sometime maybe in the 30s or 40s. No, it's one of those things. I have this studio here, and it's not even a working studio right now. It's more of a storage unit for stuff. But I was working on mine, and I realized I can record somebody else's album, but I can't record my own album. And so I did a lot. I have a lot of recordings. I have an album recorded, really, but I'm not happy with it, so I won't release it. It's hard for me to switch from artist mode to engineer mode to producer mode. It's just hard for me to do that. When I did that Closer to Town album in 2011, it was at Perdanales Studios, and I had Pake Rossi come in there and help produce. And then Jacob Skiba, the house engineer for Perdanales, he had a whole lot of great input, and he helped as well. And I was kind of like, I didn't have to worry too much about it. I kind of like to leave it in the hands of somebody else that I trust and just be able to concentrate on the performance and making sure I'm playing the song it's supposed to be played instead of switching from back and forth from engineer, and then click tracks and overdubbing. It's just not my thing.
Oh, for sure. And back when I did that interview for you, we talked about that record, and you brought up one of my favorite quotes. I use it to this day. You wanted to keep the wood in the performance.
Oh yeah.
And I just loved that. And honestly, I'm using that as a guiding light on this record that Jules and I are working on right now. And I think that's very important especially when you're a singer-songwriter, the song should speak more than the production, So
yeah, exactly. exactly. That's what I think. And when you know, I'll record and I'll try to make my recording as raw as possible, but mixing your own voice and your own guitar it's hard for me anyway. And I tend to hate the way it sounds naturally. Just I don't know. That's just the way. I don't know if that's the majority of people, but it's me. I don't like the way I sound when I hear it back. It's like that's not the way I sounded when I was playing it, is it? But and so I try to mask what I don't like, and or and it's just it doesn't transfer, the way I want it to. But when I have like when Pake was in there, he's really good at keeping the wood in music in a recording. And so it was just, I trusted him when he said it sounds good, instead of overthinking and picking it to death. That's what I do with my own. So I can do I like I said I can mix and record somebody else, but it's just almost impossible for me to come up with a product that I'm happy with.
Oh
So
yeah. That I used to self-produce all through high school, early college. I mean, actually, through my 30s, I self-produced some, and then I finally worked with Mason Shirley with Sound Machine Studio, and that was the first time I ever had an outside producer, and it changed my life.
oh yeah,
Because yeah, when you're self-producing, there of course there's some sort of aspect of control to it, but it's much I don't know. I love having that outside perspective to guide you, to show you that what you're doing is right, or maybe try this a little different. But finding that connection, finding that trust between you and the producer is integral to, I guess, the creativity of it.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
I wanted to you say that you're able to record others, and that reminded me that you went to school for audio engineering. Is that correct?
I did. I went to it was a Media Tech Institute. It was in Arlen Recording Studios there in South Austin, which is a sister, Perdanales. It's a sister studio of Perdanales, and I went there and I learned a whole lot, But there's just some people that are really good at recording, and I learned the science and I learned the gear, and I can make a decent recording, but there's some guys that are just naturally just great. Like Jacob Skiba for one, he's just has the I don't know. He just has it's an ear that a golden ear. But yeah, he's really good. I mean I can get by in the studio, but it's not something that I'm glad I went to that school. I mean, I learned a lot, especially when I went to record at Perdanales. The knowledge helped me out. I knew the lingo and I knew what if I did have some input, I knew how to to talk my way around the studio. But it was one of those deals where it was like you're going to this school, a multi-million-dollar studio. You have this vintage gear, an AP, this vintage API with Neve freeze and a sidecar. It's just this shit that I'm never gonna be able to afford. And then you're done with the school, and you have that at your fingertips, and you can book studio time, you know, and then you're done with school and they release you into the wild with like back then you had an inbox and a laptop and a freaking SM57 or and a 58 maybe if you're lucky, and it's like shit. So you go and you try to get an internship, uh and I which I did at the school at Arlen, and but which could eventually it just wasn't for me. I couldn't work for free. Is the thing. It's something that I thought I wanted to pursue, the recording, but then I realized songwriting was my niche. more than the producing. And I don't mind doing, like, I'll do some albums or demo stuff for people, and I can record here, or just, yeah, demo stuff. Like sometimes Pake is going, he records a lot with David Beck. And when he has to, when he wants to, he says, I have this song and blah, blah, blah. I want this and this and this. And I can help him with that. He sends me something rough and then I can add stuff to it where the engineer and producer, whoever, have an idea of what he wants and then they do their magic. I
Yeah.
could do that in my studio and stuff. But if you want something to release, it's not really what I'm doing over here.
That's cool. Hey, Jules,
Yeah.
you're here. Chime in.
Man, Ty, you and I became good friends, from the moment we started hanging out, man. I would say that, you were one of the first people that I met in town because I went to the exchange and you were playing that night. And I was like, yo, who's a fiddle player around these parts? And you were like, Chisholm Mills. And
Hmm.
and looked the guy up and stalked him online for a bit till he agreed to play with me. And the rest is history, man. But knowing your story, man, like it's very similar to mine, where like, you went to recording school and this sort of like, might I say, this sort of childhood sort of optimism and delusion towards the music industry and recording in general, just sort of like gets broken asunder by these things like, oh, now you have to work for free, or hey, kid, here's an M box, be happy with this. This kind of shit that we're like, it's, yeah. I was recently on a different podcast, on the El Volo podcast run by a Vago Burgers and Barbecue guy, and I was telling him about how when I came out of Starstruck out of my internship, it was like, wow, like I was 21 years old and I was left with this feeling of like, is that like the highlight of my career now? Like, must I go back to M boxes, bullshit SM58s, and recording inside of closets with packing blankets? And, uh, and like at some point, after many years of recording in closets with packing blankets and, upgrading your M box to the next model when it comes out, or whatever the M box du jour was over the years, I met this guy named Todd Levine, who was a producer and just sat me down and we just talked for a while about how he works, how I like to work, what my music is missing, how a producer could benefit me. And it was through those conversations that I came to work with him and develop the album Mountain Time, which, I consider that like my first real record. And that was a whole experience that what I'm getting to is that I hope that you find someone like a Todd Levine for me, for you, in the sense that it's very difficult, man, to like to self-produce and to see your own project, you know, forest through the trees kind of thing. Like I just got done working with Plank on some like on the layouts for his new album. And I'm looking at the album that I have, and I still have some like place filler artwork, and I don't even know where to begin with the layout. So it's like that difference between working on other people's stuff and being able to organize other people's stuff and get them good sounds that they enjoy and being able to do all these things for other people. I so understand what that is like to then look at your own stuff and maybe not like the way that you sound and not enjoy the process of doing this by yourself. Like it's just weird how things over the years you kind of determine certain things. But man, your music so deserves like someone to give it like a loving little help with achieving a new album and getting like some new Ty Dietz material out there, man. Because we love you here, brother. And I so enjoy watching you play. When I watched you open for Ray Wylie, you brought that dive bar sort of atmosphere with you to that stage, no matter if there was like 800 people or eight. Like it really translated in a beautiful way, brother. So, my
Thank you.
you and all that stuff. Yeah, man.
Yeah, you're all right. I'm going over this interview that I wrote with or did with you. I think it was 9 years ago. I did it with you in 2016, and at
Oh,
that time,
wow. Do you know what month?
I don't remember what month, and
that was my sobriety year, so
uh,
it could have been if it was before May 23rd.
uh,
I don't it could be anything.
oh no, it was actually May 24th, 2016.
2 days before I got sober. Wow.
Wow. But so there we go. At that time, you said you had written over 200 songs. So was that true at that time?
Well, I mean, probably.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I was probably just freaking throwing a number. I didn't even know how to count. I mean, if you count all those, like the throwaways and the stuff that, you think it's going to be good and then you end up hating it and it just goes away. I've written a lot of those. I mean, I write more often than I make out to be. I'm say I have writer's block. It's not true. It's just they're just not good to me. They're not something I want to. They just kind of go away. It's just like, all right, I did it. I hate it. It's gone. It was here. Now it's gone.
Yeah.
And so nobody really gets to hear them, and I forget about them. I can sit here and when I start thinking, I can remember. I start remembering songs that I wrote, and sometimes those turn into new songs, like a idea from a song that I wrote and throw away. But I kind of remember some of it years later. I can take something from it, and turn it into something else. But anyway, I don't know. I might have been full of shit with the 200, but I think that's where I was going with it. I mean, do I have 200 songs right now to show you or give you or like send over to you? No. But I probably have 30, maybe 40
Yeah.
recorded, and stuff I find, voice memo stuff, or I have this little battery powered digital recorder before smartphones, and I actually found the very first lick to Army Green and me ad-libbing some weird lyrics over it, and then a song Caroline that I have. It's just there's just a bunch of stuff. There's songs that I don't know that I've written with Pake that I don't even know. Pake plays them, but I don't. I have a co-write with you. I even have a co-write with Rob Golden.
Hope and Hostility, right?
Hope and Hostility. Yeah, I miss those guys, man.
I know. I used to be in that band.
Yeah, I miss those guys.
Yeah. And we talk a lot about process on this podcast. And at the time you said that you don't have a songwriting process. Has that changed at all?
Not really. I do not. I mean, it just comes to me like it's most of the songs that I have that I like that are keepers and true songs and dear to my heart. They just came to me like it just came out all in one flow. When I sit down and try to write a song, those are the ones that always get thrown away. I sit down and I'm like, okay, I'm going to write a song. I'm not a disciplined writer like that. It just doesn't happen for me. I have to feel, I have to feel it, and I have to feel a certain way. And if I'm happy and I sit down and try to write a song that's sad, it doesn't fucking work. Or if I'm sad and I'm trying to write this, I need to write this happy. I would never be able to be a freaking round table songwriter, dude, whatever they are. I write to make me feel what I'm feeling, and either to magnify it or to settle it down. That's how I write, and it just comes out. It just comes out. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to it. Sometimes I'm just picking on the guitar and I have a chord progression and something pops in my head and I write it down and it all comes out at once. Sometimes I have a lyric in my head and or a melody, and I pick up my guitar and if it all comes out at once, it comes out. Usually if I stop in the middle
Mm-hmm.
and say I'm going to come back to this, it never happens.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah, it has to come out in one almost seamless process in a matter of an hour to two. And if it doesn't happen in that hour or two, it's probably not going to happen.
Right. Yeah, I'm the exact same way with that. Yeah, I also find that when I'm listening to more music, because I go through phases where there's times where I'm listening to more podcasts or more, or I'm reading a lot. But when I listen to music, that's when I'm inspired to write music, if that makes sense. Which I guess is a natural thing. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but that's one thing that happens for me. And then also, you're a fisherman. Do you happen to come up with songs while you're out on the water?
Not really. I'm usually looking for the fish, you know.
There you go.
I'm concentrate. I'm kind of hyper focused on the fishing. Sometimes when I go by myself and I'm just out there drifting, and I just think it's kind of like a meditation. It's more of, I don't think, is the
Yeah.
thing. It's more of a meditation, and when I'm by myself or just time alone and just kind of not thinking about anything. And that's my favorite. And I don't really listen to music out there. It's just music is just can overwhelm, or overpower. What am I trying to say? It's everywhere I turn. I mean, that's every night, and most of my friends and acquaintances are music, and there's music and music, and just people asking me about music, and which is great. I still love music, but sometimes I just don't want to fucking deal with music.
I was about to say, I'm so sorry we asked you on this podcast to talk
No,
about
no, no,
music.
no. It's great. No, I still love. I don't mean to sound like it's just nice to take a break, and it's nice to have that to go listen to God's music, the sound of the birds and the waves and and nature. It's great out there. Most of the time, it's just silence or the sounds of nature,
Yeah.
which is going to be my new instrumental album. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's kind of why I brought that up, because we've had previous conversations with past guests that talk about they come up with songs when they're doing something completely different, say like washing the dishes or whatever. So I just figured like maybe being out in the water in that silence helps open your mind a little bit to something.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, it definitely opens my mind to and my heart, and it's a spiritual thing for me too, especially alone. But I don't think a song has really been born out on the water for me. I'm going to tell you right now, most of this is how it happens with me. I don't know if you can call it a process, but when I have something to do early in the morning, or I know it's already late and I know I need to get to sleep, and I'm laying down and knowing I need to be to sleep, it's like I have the freaking best idea for a song, and I have to get up and I have to go write it, and I end up staying up till daylight. We in the wee hours of the morning until the sun comes up, and then it's finished. And those are the couple hours I have usually, and it's when it's silent, everybody's asleep, the town is asleep, the streets are quiet, and I usually go into the garage and write really quietly. And it's not something I just belt out. It's like really quiet, and I usually turn the recorder on my voice memos, and I'll have like that last song I wrote. It's called Discomfort Zone. I have about 6 or 7. You know, it's from like when I first came up, with the idea, like I got up out of bed and I was like, oh shit, here we go. And then the second one is, it has a little bit like the first verse, and then, well, and then the last one is complete.
Sounds exactly like my voice memos.
Yeah, yeah. And it has to, that's how most of my songs are born, is in the middle of the night when the world is asleep. And I'm not, or I can't. That's when it pops into my head, and I either have to. What does Mitch Hedberg say? I'm laying in bed and I think of a joke and I don't have a pen. I just have to convince myself it wasn't a funny joke. um, yeah, I get up and do the thing, or I don't, and then usually when something if it's something that I get up for, and complete, it usually comes out to something I like and that I'm proud of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other time, usually when I try to sit down and write a song, it's just really it's unnatural for me. I can't force them out. I really can't.
Yeah. You talked about writing when the world is asleep, and this has happened to me twice where I'm like I'm in an apartment like my cousin Derrick's apartment, who's by the way our only listener. When I've gone to Austin, like in my early 20s, he would go to work and I'd just be chilling at his apartment late at night, and his roommate would be asleep, and I'd just be playing guitar, my head resting on the guitar, just quietly playing, and then suddenly a song would come out, but I couldn't really sing because then I'd wake up the roommate, so I'd sing falsetto just real quietly, to
Hmm.
myself. And this has happened twice. They're the most amazing, like to me, my favorite songs I've written. And then when I go to try to play them in daylight, I can't sing them because they're way too high. So I have to like recalibrate, bring them down low, but I don't like them that much. So usually I invite a female singer to actually sing these songs.
Yeah.
So that's like an aside, not really related to what you were saying, but it reminded me of that.
No, yeah, no, I completely feel you on that. Yeah, a lot of the recordings of mine, like there's one I remember. I can't even remember the name of the song. You tell me what to do. It's just one of those that I would have to revisit. But I remember the recording when I was writing it. My voice just sounded. I mean, it didn't even sound like me, because I was having to be so quiet and the falsetto it wasn't but it sounded good. And it's like I like it like that. I mean, I can't go up there on stage whispering my song. So now it's just a voice memo forever, I guess.
I guess so. Or give it to someone who can sing it
Yes.
and not whisper it. Jules,
Yeah.
chime in, please.
Stop speaking over people, Jimmy.
I don't know what you're talking
Right, right. Well, man, it's wild though, man, because like, I think it's different for all of us, man, but you get all this equipment, and no matter what equipment you have, like there's no single piece of equipment that's gonna cure your like, I don't like hearing myself back sort of blues. And getting to a point where I don't know, man, I feel like it's if you can't like not being able to like I don't know, maybe people experience the same sort of stuff. I see this more on the video side, really, where like people who have not seen themselves on camera really don't like or are very discomfort, uncomfortable with viewing themselves on a screen. Um, and it seems really strange that that sort of thing is still around, even with like all the selfies and all the, camera stuff that goes on in everyone's everyday lives. Um, but there's got to be something that like, gets you to like whether like for me, sometimes it's like I just need a new piece of equipment. Like I need a new guitar pedal, or I need a new plugin, or I need a better interface. And then it was like I will now go and I will sit and it will be an enjoyable experience at my desk. But so much of the bells and whistles that I purchase around music is not necessarily like music equipment. It's like stuff that makes it a more comfortable experience for me as I dedicate my time into it. So whether it's like a large screen that I don't have to squint at, or it's a comfortable chair that has arms that go up and down so I don't smack my guitar. All of these little decisions, as you know, man, going to recording school, they all go into that stuff. But you got to find the kind of recipe in order to like make you look forward to going to spend that time doing it.
Yeah.
Um, so, 'cause it doesn't sound like it's like, I mean, I have my days too, man. Some days I'm like, you know what, recording just isn't an enjoyable experience. Why would anyone want to have a click track blasting in their headphones and try and make something musical and beautiful to a click track that's just jarring your earbuds, at beats per minute, for 3.5 minutes at a time. Like I totally get it. So like, maybe recording is just something you kind of fall in and out of love with throughout various points of your life and career. But man, I really want to hear more music from you, Ty. Like I bump your stuff every now and then. It's a great little album, dude. That like there's certain recordings that have this of a high replayability to them. You know what I'm saying? Like you can revisit that album over and over and over again. And that's a hallmark of a great album, dude, of good material, of an artist that can do what they do for a very long time. So anyway, I am personally excited to see if you come up with anything, even if it's in the 40s, bro. You know.
Yeah. I've always used that Willis Allen Ramsey line. I always ask him, they would ask him, when are you going to come out with a new album, you know? Because it was years, I mean, years and decades. He said, well, what's wrong with the first one?
You've actually used that on me every time I've asked you when's the next
Dude,
record.
it's my favorite. It's my favorite.
I'd be remiss not to bring up you. I don't know. Have you ever collaborated with Adam Carroll? I know y'all have kind of a friendship. You've covered his song before, correct?
Yeah, that album. That's the only cover on that Closer to Town album is Adam Carroll. It's a Hi-Fi Love.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then live I cover, some of his stuff. No, we never collaborated. We just kind of, we just became friends. The whole Adam Carroll thing is pretty cool, man. I remember, I don't know if I've told you this. I probably have. I repeat myself all the time on these things. When I was 16 years old, I remember my friend's dad had a deer lease in Edna, and we were going up there and we're going through Victoria area. And Steve Kaufman had that 90 98. I think up there it was 98.7, I think. And it was a Texas radio station. He had played Adam Carroll, Bubblegum and Bad Karma off the South of Town album. And I've never heard anything like that. I was like, I mean, it's like bluegrass, freaking Texas, Bob Dylan, John Prine. It's just you really unique writing. And I was blown away, and I was really getting into playing my guitar and getting into music. And I remember Steve Kaufman came on and he was really good about that. When a song played, he would tag it, he would say that was Adam Carroll on the South Town album, blah, blah, blah. I remember writing it down on my hand and then transferring it to paper later when we got to the juries. When I got back, I saw he would play at the surf club and stuff. And I started going to watch him at the surf club. And then I eventually got a job at Craig's Record Factory, when I was probably 18. This was a couple of years later.
I forgot about Craig's.
Yeah, and I started a Texas music section there, and I started ordering all these, songwriters, not just the Pat Greens and the Corey Morrows that were really popular at that time, but digging further in, who wrote that song, that wasn't Pat Green that wrote it, blah, 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 this guy wrote it. So I would bring all these guys in, Adam Carroll's and the Owen Temples, and I started this little section, and I remember the owner gave me this little area, and I filled that up, and it became, okay, it had some traffic in there. I remember the first album I ordered was the South of Town, Adam Carroll. Anyway, Casey Lane would come in and he would hang posters. Hey, I'll give you tickets to this if I can hang some posters in there. Ended up becoming assistant manager, and I was like, yeah, you can hang posters, whatever. And Casey and I became friends. And then he took that idea and made Surf Club Records.
Yeah.
It's just crazy, all that. And then starting to get gigs, and then starting to play around here and becoming a local musician and here in Corpus. And then now I'm friends with Adam Carroll. It's like from that, just sticking with it, just not ever leaving the scene, even if it's just your local scene, just don't stop. And even Adam, he's told me that. I was like, I don't know, man, it's freaking hard. And he was like, all you got to do, Adam Carroll. I remember one time on the phone, he was telling me, all you got to do is really outlast everybody else. He goes, people start, people, they just give up. A lot of people just start giving up, and people, you just got to be the last one standing.
There
I
you
was
go.
like, yeah, I gig a lot, it gets tiring, but I'm always know I'm blessed to have these gigs, and even though it gets, it's hard for this long, going on 20 years in the same places, the same bars and the same people. It's great it's a double-edged sword. I love it because I met so many great friends and family and people I consider family. And I've met a lot of great people. I've had a version of me die and then a version of me reborn, all in this time period, all in these same bars and these same venues. It's great, but it gets tiring too. You have to do these, even if you don't want to. It's just to pay the bills, so
Yeah. Now I work as a news producer, and
yeah.
that's my full-time job, and I gig rarely. I'm gigging more coming up this year finally, but for years, for about 6 years before COVID, I was doing it full time. Not as much as you're crazy as much as you gig. I was doing it like maybe 4 or 5 nights out of the week, but you do it constantly, it seems
Mhm.
like. And yeah, no, I remember being like, I really don't want to play today, but I got to.
Yeah, I remember freaking reading, or I don't know if I was reading it or I was listening to an interview with some big time artist or whatever. He was like, "Yeah, we just got off of it was what was it, a freaking 80-day tour or something," and he was like, "Oh," I was like, "Fucking pussy," you know. I've been freaking on a 20-year tour of the same town. No,
That's
I'm just playing. It's just no, I know the traveling and stuff and the nice tour bus and the catering and all the free stuff. It is probably really hard. So
um, but let's get back to the beautiful stuff you just said. Jules, before I ask the final question, you got anything you want to say?
Man, Ty, this town knows you and loves you, man, and we love your tunes. And I'm really happy that like to see that there's like, I mean, you're somewhat like an institution, brother. There's always a Ty Dietz show going on somewhere. People count on you playing shorties and Vernon's and stuff like that. It's like, oh, it's a Wednesday. I always go down to Vernon's sort of thing, and Ty will be there at 10ish. Bring Red Bulls and cigarettes because dude is burning both ends of the candle, going fishing in the morning and staying up too late at night. And it's I don't know, man. I think that like in many ways, like when I came from New York down here, I was just really happy to meet a cat like you because I was like, you're the kind of cats that like I hung out with in New York that just been doing this shit for a very long time and maybe had another side gig they were passionate about or whatever. But at the end of the day, they went to play these gigs and it was all the time and everyone was a little burnt about it, but it was like, dude, this is what we did. We didn't question it, and the community loved them for it as well. So to sort of see this appear just in another form, different name, different guy, but still the same love, same kind of tunes, same attitudes, same saltiness. It's just, you're one of my favorite people down here, brother, and I appreciate everything you do. And I've even come to you for advice in the past with like, little things in life where I'm like, bro, what do you think about this? And you've given me really good advice on anything that I've talked to you about, man. And so I just appreciate you, brother. Both
well,
your
good, man. Thank you. I appreciate you too. And Jimmy is, man, you've kept Jimmy, and I've known him for a long time, and just the whole CC Songwriters deal, how he's made that grow. I mean, with the help of a team, of course, it's impressive. But you've kept with just little things like this in the interviews and just being included. It has really meant a lot to me, and I really appreciate that. It kind of keeps a little, even like it always comes like when the fire's going out, and it just kind of rekindles that fire, and I'm like, "Hey, maybe I fucking do love this shit, I don't know."
Yeah,
And
man.
I appreciate you doing that and I'm I know it's not all just for me. You do that for a lot of people,
Hey,
and this whole operation that you've pursued and have been successful at has done that.
oh,
And
it's
bring Jules into the equation. It's great, man.
no, definitely. I remember it was back in the we got to wrap up soon, but I want to tell this story. The 2020 festival, right before COVID hit, it was literally the month before COVID hit. We had the 2020 Songwriters Festival, and it's still one of my favorite moments of music was the showcase we did at House of Rock. on Saturday night that year, and it was you and Shayna. I forget everybody that played. I think Jamie Harris played, and then Michael O'Connor. Was Jeff Plankenhorn there? He might have been there.
Yeah, I think so.
And then it ended with Adam and Chris Carroll, and then it like everyone went up on stage at the end. It was just this magical night of music filled with these legendary performers, you included. And I'll always remember that. And I also flash forward to this year. You came in clutch. It was going to be the first year you didn't play the festival, and then we asked you last second, hey, can you fill in for someone who couldn't make it? And you did, because you're always there and you're always performing here in the Coastal Bend. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. And thank you too, Jules, man. Thanks for the kind words, brother.
Yeah. All right. Before we go, one more question. It's the magical question. Not really. It's the most simple, stupid question, but it creates these amazing answers from most people. Ty Dietz, what do you love about music?
Probably the way it sounds.
Oh, my mic I was laughing really loudly, but my mic was turned off. That was the best answer I think we've gotten, right? That's perfect.
If you don't mind, there isn't much I will say about the latest trends. All I'd have are opinions anyway. If you stick around long.
Shayna's music is a unique and glorious blend of influences from her native Texas. Soul, folk, country, and something else which is uniquely her own. Soulful vocals, guitars, harmonica, pedal steel, violins, and are those mariachi trumpets I hear? This is Shayna Sands. She's one of our favorites. She's a longtime CC Songwriters performer, and it's great to have you with us on the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I just got back from a show I played at El Mercado South here in Austin with Claudia Gibson, who was also at the Songwriters Fest in Corpus, CC Songwriters, and it was fun. And yeah, that's it right now. I'm doing a Kickstarter, and it's been on my mind.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely get into your Kickstarter here in a little bit, but tell me how was the show with Claudia? She's one of our favorites as well.
It was fun. She played this really pretty song called, what is it called? Something about rain. I always forget names. It's funny because my favorite song of hers, I like The Fields of Shazy, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And then this one about rain. And another one of my friends who is a great songwriter, he wrote a song, Wherever I Go, I'm Always More at Home in the Rain. And it's something about rain, I guess, that I like those songs a lot. She was great. It was fun.
Awesome. You are originally from the Corpus Christi area, but now you're in Austin. How has that transition been like?
I grew up in Corpus. Technically, I was born in Houston.
Okay.
But I was living in Corpus all my childhood pretty much, and until I was 18. The transition, well, I kind of moved around a little bit before. When I was 18, I moved to San Marcos. I went to school. 19, I went to New York. 25, 24, I came back to Corpus. So the transition from Corpus to Austin was like kind of like long overdue because I didn't mean to stay in Corpus that long. From 2015 to 2019, it was supposed to be like a few months. And then I started going to school. I had planned to go back to San Marcos to finish school. And I took one music theory class at Del Mar. I wanted to skip ahead because I had already taken sort of like an intro to music theory. And I thought, I just want to learn as much as I can really fast so I can write music, like communicate better to other musicians. So I tried to take music theory 2 in the summer, which is like extremely fast paced. And I was getting C's. And the chair was like, what are you doing this for? And I said, as I want to write music. And she goes, well, why don't you major in composition? So I just changed my whole life plan and ended up just majoring in composition.
When did you write your first song?
I was just talking about this earlier with Claudia. It came up, I was 17 and I was in a creative writing class in high school with Mr. Eric Boyd. And he had half of the year, you could take this elective, half was creative writing, half was film study. And it was like the most inspiring class ever. So I wrote this poem. And at the time, I had already been playing guitar for 5 years or so at that point, maybe. And I finally decided to put like a more serious words to music. I just remember doing that. And that became my first serious song. Although I started making up silly joke songs as soon as I had a guitar in my hand. It was like, I didn't even know how to play. I was just making up jokes. I don't know if those count.
I mean, yeah, joke songs are the best.
I mean, and maybe the first song, then I don't know if it counts or not, but like the joke songs I would write were like, I was probably 12 or something.
Maybe you can illuminate the differences between like majoring in composition versus like, I don't know, what was it, music theory that you were focused in earlier? Or was it like, is that what you were going to, it's not like music theory that you got a degree in, is it? I mean,
Some programs might consider it that, but I didn't know this when I first started, but it turned out that only Del Mar had like an associate's version of composition, and there was no 4-year version of it, and I didn't know that when I started the program. So by the time I got to the 4 years and transferred out, I had to switch to guitar performance. But so composition would basically be music theory in a sense, because that's what you study in order to compose. It's almost like inside out, looking at it inside out. So almost like saying like a doctor is like a master of anatomy.
right.
And chemistry, but you know.
So you have like a really like Southwestern Joan Baez sort of thing going on, like in your music. Like I hear like these epic sort of vocals coming from you, and a lot of minor chords, and you have this incredible right hand technique that like I'm always envious of players who can use their middle and ring fingers when they start, you know, on the right hand with guitar. I mean, I wonder, was that always like the Shayna Sands sound? Was that something that you found and gravitated towards, or how did you like? It's almost like when I listen to your stuff, it's like a 1-4-5 format, but with minor chords in a way that like really benefits from like a little bit of tremolo and some like bigger, spookier reverbs. Like I really like the vibe that you have in a lot of your compositions, we'll say, you know. But how did you get there?
It's so funny because it's like I didn't think of it as, of course I know my story and I know that it's not always been this way at all. I never really thought like, oh, most people just see today. So what happened was I heard Bob Dylan in the car one day. My dad was picking me up or something, and I was like, what is this? Like, just, what is this? And I was already pretty old to like considering, I didn't get introduced to him until I was 17. And his voice was like ancient sounding, and I just decided right then and there that I wanted to do what he did for me, for other people, if I could. And I just thought I should write more songs or write songs. And then that is how I started writing. But I was playing guitar. Guitar was really, really important to me since I was 12, since I picked it up. And music and lyrics have always been like a refuge for me since I was going through family turmoil and things. So I always like, it was just like this slow thing, gradual, like snowballing. And before I got into Bob Dylan, I was into Metallica and Black Sabbath and just trying to learn anything that could challenge my hands because I thought that was fun. And I had friends that would help me by also playing guitar and saying, have you heard this? Have you heard that? And we would like talk all night on the phone, 3-way calls and like, you know, all that. We would talk all night on the phone and say, have you heard this? And then we'd just like sit there on the phone like middle schoolers do, playing each other riffs. And so it was just this thing, again, that snowballed. And then in high school, I learned a little bit of, it was an elective, so I learned a little bit of classical guitar, and I put it down and I also put down like the challenging riffs. So as soon as I heard Bob Dylan, and all I wanted to do was do the finger picking stuff. And so I had a little bit of metal, a little bit of classical, a little bit of the folk, and then a little bit of harmonica. It's just like slowly. And by the time I was 17 or 18, then I went to San Marcos for school, and that's where I found songwriting taken seriously by Kent Finley and his songwriter circle at Cheatham Street. And Ty Dietz would come. That's why I really wanted to talk with Ty, because we have so many memories together. He'd come with Pake Rossi, and they'd drive up all the way every single Wednesday for like months. And I would walk over from my dorm, and we would listen to people's songs like they were sacred, and you couldn't talk during it. And I never experienced anything like that in my life. So I was going to school for art and communications, and like didn't know what I was doing that. I just didn't know what to do. There were so many things I wanted to do in college, like, and I didn't want to study music. I thought that wasn't for me. I'm not the type of person that those people are. Like, I thought they were a different breed of people. The people that read well, read music well, and they're like super nerdy about it, and like they've all been in choir their whole lives, and they've all taken lessons their whole life, and they can all communicate, can count rhythms perfectly, and that wasn't me. And I definitely was very slow at reading music. So I never wanted to study it until way later. I finally went to, what happened? Oh, a friend of mine was moving to New York City, and she was my best friend, and we used to play in middle school together. And I was all excited, like, she invited me to come stay with her, and her parents said, yeah, come live with us. It'll be fine. I was like 19. So I went for a few months to live with them, and she was going to audio engineering school. And I just thought, this is my life plan. My best friend, she's going to audio engineering school. We're going to produce music together. We're going to live together. And it was this whole dream thing. And life took her on a completely different path. And then I moved to Brooklyn because they were in Long Island. So I wanted to keep going with the music. And like weird, crazy, lucky things started happening, like one after the other. Just saying, I played the first song I ever wrote in this bar owned by Ashford and Simpson, and Roberta Flack was in the crowd, and she stood up and started singing the chorus and clapping like it was a church. And there was just, I don't know, it was just surreal. Like, New York was the most surreal thing in my life. But I got really, I don't know how to explain it, but I got stuck a little bit there in a lot of ways. But all these crazy, lucky, beautiful, wonderful experiences happened, and I just needed to come back home after 5 years of it. So that's when pick up with the classical. Since I had to study classical guitar again, because I wanted to learn to write, you had to pick an instrument. Well, I was a guitarist. So after that, I'm sorry if this is long-winded, but after that, after studying classical guitar, it was like natural for it to go into my music. So just years and years of just exploring life. When in New York, I went to the blues club every night. I got super depressed too, and I was on a autopilot going to this blues club almost every single night. And I met these incredible players, and I learned from them. So I just took from everything, every little thing. And that's why all of the stuff.
Yeah. I mean, through all of that, you created this sound that's uniquely yours, and more than
sorry, that was so long.
No, it's great. No,
it's 15 years. It's like 17 years.
Yeah. How do you condense that down to the soundbite I just did without knowing all of that? Right. So, I mean,
guess, yeah.
You went on this journey to find exactly what your sound is. And like more than any of the performers I've heard, over the past 20 years, you really do have a sound that's uniquely yours, and that's why we love you. I
couldn't sing for shit either when I started. I had this Glenn Howard was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, blah, 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 blah. Like,
hey, that's better than my. I started singing before my voice dropped, and all my first recordings, I sound like Mickey Mouse. It's great. But so I've been quiet because I knew that I did an interview with you for the Bin magazine years ago, and I finally found it. I've been searching for it.
You said nice things, I remember. It's
Oh,
like, wow, he's saying nice things. Those are very nice. I don't
I'm
know if
gonna,
that's true.
I'm gonna, yeah, oh, definitely. They're definitely true. I'm gonna skip over my words though, and there's a quote here from you that I really love, and it says, "Take time out of your day to enjoy music. It is a pure spiritual oneness with creativity, with community, and with the divine." And I'm like,
I
man,
don't, God, I can't believe I said that.
what were you on when you said that? Because, but
I,
it's like legitimately, that's beautiful.
thank you. I don't know what I was doing. I think I was at Delmar, still or something. I know what was happening was, my teacher was a big Leonard Cohen fan, and he actually gave me his book that he had in the '60s, his guitar book. I think I have it here somewhere. Anyway, what was interesting was I was introduced to Leonard Cohen in college, and I didn't like it because the first stuff I heard was his later stuff, and I just heard like grumbling, and I was like, I'm 18. I don't want to listen to this grumbling right now. And it took me. I'm very sad because I had the opportunity to see him in New York, and I was like, I know everyone in New York loves him, and the East Coast songwriter scene has like a kind of a different like tilt, and it was all Leonard Cohen and Bruce Springsteen and stuff, and Billy Joel, like all the East Coast type. And so I didn't get to see him, but what happened was Leonard Cohen happened to me, and I know he was very spiritual, and he used a lot of ancient texts, and he was just, I don't know, I just listened to nothing but him and interviews of him for like a year or two straight. So I felt like I was just taking on something of his, like, was within me. So anything, probably me mentioning the divine at that point probably had to do with him.
That makes sense.
That's why when I was starting to study classical music in college, my sound changed, because that's when I started introducing the other instruments, the trumpet and the cello. Before, it was very rock and roll. So my very first release, which is took off of Spotify because it doesn't represent me whatsoever. Yeah, I was all about rock and roll and blues and a different vibe. So yeah, it just changed when I studied classical.
Yeah. When you wrote your first song, you were, sorry if this is too personal, but you said you were suffering from acute anxiety.
Oh,
And
I said it. I said it on an interview.
you said at the time that you were writing poems and then wrote those into songs. But it was spurred by this anxiety. And has that been something that's, spurred your songwriting over the years?
No, I mean, I guess what I meant to say was songwriting is a coping mechanism. It started as a coping mechanism for sure.
Definitely.
And a lot of my songs are still definitely processing emotion from my own life, and it's definitely still helps me in that way. But it's not like it was. I don't see it as just like anxiety is like a very specific emotion, and it's not just that. It's everything. It's all life finds its way into songs. It's just that I try to, I guess, transform a lot of dark things, because I have gone through a lot of dark times and things. And so I do think a big part of my songs and my songwriting is like that, is that part of my life and personality. And it's almost like, oh, what if you heal that and you don't have anything to write about? Like, it's almost like that intense of like a part of it. But I don't believe that's true either. You see, I do these workshops for some people that are like in recovery, mental health recovery. And I talk about why I started writing and how, I encourage them to write about whatever's truthful for them. And obviously, like, that's what songs are. But the point is that there's light in it. So the dark songs, I don't see them as bad or negative or anything most of the time, even though sometimes it might feel like the energy changes a little bit when I sing something. And I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
I shouldn't play too many of these in a row. I believe in the light in those, though. There's light in those songs. There's a twist, there's a message, there's a light.
Definitely. I'm guilty of that too, playing multiple songs in a row. I'm like, yeah, I should probably change that up.
So I think what you're helping me get at something that I have difficulty parsing out through words. Folks have called the music that I create, they've called it dark Americana. And I agreed with that and kind of rolled with that because I know that a lot of the stuff that I do, I write out of times in my life when I'm really going through it, you know. It's like I've said before, like, man, I'm out of new material right now because nobody's treating me poorly, sort of thing, you know. But also like big life events that happen that, you know, the stuff that your nervous system responds to. Like I will songwrite as a coping mechanism. And I've said before that like I really tend to appreciate and think they're more solid songs that I write out of these hard lived experiences. And I'm
Yeah.
thankful for those songs, but I don't appreciate the trauma it takes to achieve them, you know?
Mhm.
It makes a lot of sense that you would like listen to someone like Leonard Cohen, who is
Mhm.
so good at being so dark, but causing so many people such, you know, joy through his music, you know?
Because
When
it's
you listen
beautiful.
to, yeah, because it's holy and sacred almost, you know, like it's, you know, Leonard is an incredible person. But if you go and listen to a lot of his, just, you know, him talking, he seems very, very real and very not so, I mean, optimistic wouldn't be the sort of phrase I would use to describe some of the,
He's enlightened. He's humble. He's
yeah.
very, very aware and self-aware in a way that just he's like a mensch. He's just
Hmm.
very
Hmm.
aware of his like his ego and he keeps it in check. And he has some funny lines that like also do that. My friend Pat Byrne is covering the song by Towns Van Zandt for the Towns Van Zandt birthday bash thing tribute,
Cool.
lungs. And I said, "Oh, is that the song about when he got lung cancer?" And he goes, "No, I thought it was about him. I don't know what's about. I thought it was about miners or something." And I said, "I thought it was because he got sick." And I ended up looking it up, and he didn't get lung cancer, but he did have trouble breathing at one point. And so
Mm,
apparently that song is about him, his own experience. And so what's cool about songwriting is we can disguise these difficult experiences as a story and we can even make it about a minor, you know, and you can put your own emotions into a story about the Civil War. I love that, you know, and you can't really, I don't really think you can write a song without putting yourself in it in some way, but I definitely think there's, you know, good things about songs that are about ourselves and obviously about ourselves, but there's also good things about songs that are about completely made up characters that we could write about any topic and it can have like a disguise and it can still be your heart having that experience. Like it can still be your own healing, even if you're writing about, it could be about anything and it's healing for others, it turns out. Does that
yeah.
make, I mean, I'm saying like, I mean, I feel like what songwriters do is not just about themselves, is what I'm saying. It's not just about us. And even if we do just write about ourselves, it's about more.
It's almost like the times when we write the songs that are about what we're going through. Sometimes, even during the time when I'm writing that song, I can cognitively process and understand that the song that I'm writing are simply it's simply the words that need to be told to myself in that moment. You know, sometimes you reach that inversion in those moments, and what do you know? It's just amazing that other people also need to hear those words as well. I mean, you were sort of to say for a second that sometimes you work with people who have been in like mental health crisis, and do you talk about songwriting with them? And because I don't understand how like songwriting has ever been helpful for mental health, but I think that I'm like a walking testament that like having been able to process, you know, this mountain of trauma and family drama and awful childhood shit, you know, for me, what is magical about songwriting is not just that like I'm still around and I still am emotionally sort of like whole and not just broken to pieces, but also that like that writing these songs is like such a weird like Zen sort of exercise.
Hmm.
Like I've said once that like what is morality other than making oneself eligible for happiness and in such a way that like I feel like to be a really good artist, to be a really good writer, one has to be just, you know, immersed in the human condition, and part of that is like knowing how to be a good person by way of like having accelerated the process that you learn about just life and how to treat people and how people wish to be treated and what do other people, how do they want to be seen? You know, you just become an expert at revealing the listener to themselves. But, you know, it's
Well, yeah, it's interesting because I mean, everybody's totally different, and not everybody's, but most people's, it's like there's as many types of songwriters as there are types of people. I mean, songwriters and songs, and I would say like it's not a one size fits all thing. There's no like blanket statement that would help like define songwriting in a sense of like morality, I think, because I mean, I see like if you were working on yourself and learning about your shadow side and keeping it in your ego, any self-development is going to help you probably write more universal songs that reach people. But when I was 17 and I wrote that song about my mom setting herself free, and that ultimately it was her own conscience that she needed to set herself free to help herself. That to me is just as the same truth today. Like for some whatever reason, that wisdom came at that time and before I did much self-work. You know, I just think I do go to those people with the idea that everybody has a song in them to write. The point of it is, for me and for them, is the process, so that they can, yeah, like you said, like the Zen, immerse themselves in this process. But part of the process is actually sharing it. Because when you share your song, no matter if it's complex or not, you might resonate with somebody else, and your simpleness in your song might empower somebody else who's simple. So like basically the point is you being yourself is the healing.
This is like honestly some illuminating conversation we're having. I'm really enjoying this. I don't want to technically move on, but I do want to make time to talk about your new album and your Kickstarter campaign. So
Yay.
Tell us about that. Tell us about these songs that are specifically going on this record and how can we help?
Awesome. Thank you, Jimmy. So far we had 2 days in the studio and recorded as much as we could and did like a little bit of mixing just for like listening purposes. Anyway, 8 songs so far, and I want to add like 2 more. I wrote a song called Flower in Your Vase, and it was inspired by a bunch of different friends I had, like, and myself dealing with relationship, but also overcoming, you know, some quote unquote like toxic relationship stuff. But I also, like, the movie Elvis had just come out, and I was thinking about Priscilla Presley and her story, and it like all just kind of like melded together, and it's about just being, you know how they say you pick a flower if you like it, and if you love it you water it or you plant it. It's kind of like that idea, like the flower in your vase is just there because you just want it for yourself. And so there's songs about relationships. Actually, it's funny, each one of them is kind of about a different relationship. They're like all different characters. They're all different people. They're really different. The sound is different. It's very kind of laid back. And we did live drums and bass and guitar and singing.
When you say that, you mean you live tracked, like you sang with the drums and the bass and everything?
Yeah.
So no real overdubbing with the basic tracks?
Not yet. There's
Okay.
some I kind of want to. And I actually did this demo with a friend a month ago, and I discovered this sound with my 12-string that I had never really gotten before, and something I did with vocals too and different harmonies. And I'm going to try to go back and kind of emulate what I did on this demo. Either that or release this demo separately, because it just, I like how it came out. It was kind of a surprise and an accident. And so this album is kind of inspired by that sound. It has a lot of 12-string so far everything is live. And Scrappy Judd Newcomb, who's really an amazing musician who's been in the Austin music scene since the 90s and played with Tony Price and just everybody. He kept saying, "What you gotta record. We gotta record you." And one day I actually got sick for like months, and I called him up and I was like, "We have to do this now." Because I already had 2 other recording projects that I started and stopped over the years and just were great, but I was just moving at a snail pace. And I just saw this as an opportunity to like work with someone great. Scrappy, you're going to produce this. You're going to pick a lot of things and the studio, and he has the drummer. It's amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah.
It's a different experience. It's an expensive yet different experience. And it's worth it. It was so healing for me to do that work. I couldn't believe how good it felt, actually. I didn't give a shit. Like, I spent all of my money. I didn't care because I needed to do that really, really, really badly. So long story short, I am raising money to put on this. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I planned to do the Kickstarter in December and I got sick and everything was up in the air. And now I started it the same week I was starting the recording session, and it was like, oh my God, my stomach was in knots.
Kickstarters are frightening because it's all or nothing, right? So
yeah. So it's sharing the music Kickstarter. If you type that in Google, you have to type sharing the music and Kickstarter, and it'll come up Shayna. It says sharing the music, Kickstarter by Shayna. The rewards are all like, it's almost, they say not to do a storefront, but it's like, in a sense, like I'm just kind of selling the album on there. Like it's like almost like pre-selling, but
Yeah.
for a little extra donation to go toward the production costs. And
when is the Kickstarter over?
March 20th. So
March 20th.
14
Okay, so we have some time. Any of our listeners that want to support Shayna on her new endeavor with this new 12-string sound and live tracking and everything, I'm really excited to hear these songs.
Conrad and Scrappy and Pat
Yes.
Mansky.
Look it up. Kickstarter, Shayna Sands, all the above.
Wait, no. It's
no.
sharing the music.
Sharing the music. I'm sorry. Thank you.
It's okay.
What were those couple days in the studio like?
Well, the first one I was super, super stressed out before I got there. Because my car broke down.
Oh, fuck.
And the same week I started the Kickstarter. So I get there, and this really, really nice Uber driver let me do vocal exercises in the car, and she was all supportive, and it was so cute. And she wanted to come in and look at the studio and everything. Okay, so that was fun. So once I got into the studio, and I took my anxiety medicine, it was good. I had a blast.
So Shayna, I don't want to take too much more of your time, but we usually end this with the same question every episode. So Jules, why don't you ask it this time?
All right. So here's the question. It's a small and seemingly sort of, it seems like a really dumb question the first time you hear it. But Jimmy, the first episode asked that we do this, and we did it more than 3 times, and it's the longest consistent thing this podcast has going for it. And it's the only argument for some modicum of discipline possessed by both Jimmy and I that we asked the same question.
What's the word you said? Modicum?
A modicum,
Modicum. Okay. Modicum.
If Garrett was here, he'd look that up for you. And
right,
give you the
but there's no Garrett. Yeah. So the question is, what do you love about music?
Music. I have this song about it. It's funny. Okay. And I'm going to quote this from a mentor of mine, Morty Cardaner. And he said, and he got this from Hasidic wisdom. Anyway, music comes from the deepest part of a soul, and it touches the deepest part of another soul. It's the only thing that can do it. It's the only thing that can immediately come from somebody's soul and immediately touch another soul.
Can't say it better than that, honestly. All right, Shayna, one more time, send our listeners who it's honestly just my cousin Derrick. Send my cousin Derrick.
Hey, Derrick.
To one more time to your Kickstarter. How can we help you get this album made?
So it's halfway to the goal, and you have to go to Sharing the Music Kickstarter. Type all of that together in your Google search bar and you will see my name, Shayna. And you click on it. I think that's the best way I've decided to get people to go to it.
Awesome. Well, Shayna, thank you so much for coming on and speaking so openly with us. This has been a wonderful conversation. And
thanks for having me. It's been fun. I felt today was so fun because I did a lot of things for music today and like little fun things. And this was definitely one of them. And thank you.
Yeah. Those are the best days. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Shayna.
Good night, guys. Thank you.
See you soon. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Corpus Christi Songwriters podcast. Make sure to join us next week. We're going to have some amazing songwriters on. We're going to have John Dennis. And of course, I'm wearing a shirt right now, Jeff Plankenhorn. So you don't want to miss that. We're going to dive in deep with those two. In the meantime, once again, let's give it up for Shayna Sands and Ty Dietz. All right. Yeah.
Are you going to have the audience sound?
Woo! Yeah, no, we just do it.
What'll be